Hi, everybody. This is Alexa Tinsley. I am the Director of Community Engagement for Jet Foundation. Thank you all for joining our community webinar series with Sarepta. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We're going to give people time to hop on. So we'll be back in a minute or two, and then we'll get started. Thank you, guys. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, I'm Alexa Tinsley. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Jet Foundation. So thank you all for joining us here today. We do miss seeing you all in person, but we know that these webinars are a great way to provide education to the community. It's more accessible, and it's also, especially during these times, a good way to get that education out there to all of you. We're very grateful to our partners like Sarepta for helping us make it possible to bring these webinars right into your home. So Sarepta has been a longstanding partner in the Duchenne community, and they're here today to talk about their exon skipping and gene therapies. We're very excited to have them join us. But before we get started, I do want to mention a few things. If this is your first webinar series, we do offer several of these a month. We'll start them back up probably in February, and we'll let you know what that looks like going forward. So this is our 21st webinar in 2022 or 2021 with 500 participants, over 500 participants over the course of the year. This webinar is being recorded, so if there's any reason you need to log off, lose power, anything like that, this will be recorded in our library of resources on our website that you can watch later. I also know that we have a lot of parents and families on our webinar today, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of Jet Foundation's Ambassador Program. We have moms, dads, grandparents across the country in 17 different states who are willing to connect with others in the community. So if you're interested in connecting with any of our ambassadors, please go to our website at jetfoundation.org, or you can reach out to me and we'll get you connected with them. Our ambassadors also run a parent support group, and you can find out more about that on our website or reach out to me again to get more information. The webinar today should take 20 to 25 minutes, and after we'll be answering all of your questions. There's a question box in your panel. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to put them in that box. We will be answering them at the end. So if you do have questions while it's going through, please put them in there, but we'll wait till the end to answer them. So that's all from me, and I will now hand it over to Kimber Barnett with Sarepta.
Well, hello everyone, and I'm so pleased to be able to talk to you today on behalf of Sarepta. I'm an employee of Sarepta. I work in our medical affairs group, and today we're going to, I've got some forward-looking statements. We're going to talk about some things in our pipeline. So some things are not approved at this time, but I'm really excited to share what Sarepta's mission is, and our goal is truly to develop life-changing precision genetic medicine to eventually treat 100% of patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I'm excited to show you what we've done so far in our development process. So first, I want to start by saying we have a stellar group of patient affairs team members that are advocating on your behalf. And this is pictures of everyone in the group. I'm going to point out Hannah Rosenberg on the bottom, in the middle. She is actually on our webinar today, so if I need to phone a friend, there she is. But take a look at this email, advocacy@sarepta.com, and Jet Foundation will have access for this if you miss it and don't have a pen and paper handy today. But advocacy at Sarepta.com links you to this fine group of individuals that will be able to help you with your needs. So to talk a little bit about Sarepta's experience in Duchenne, really a leader in this field. When we look at the programs we have 14 dedicated to RNA therapy, and that is our PMO and PPMO line. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go through, but you can't hear PMO and PPMO or RNA therapy enough to understand the difference in these treatment regimens. We have 4 programs going on in gene therapy and 2 programs that are early on. They're actually not even in the clinic in humans yet. They're still being studied, but 2 exciting programs in gene editing. So that gives us 20 programs in all. I would tell you that Sarepta has been dedicated to the research and development of Duchenne for over 10 years. And it's a very nimble and dynamic company with really strong people dedicated to this mission. So I'm going to start with a little introduction to Duchenne and clinical research. So Duchenne, you may be new to this, or you may know a lot about it right now, but it is a rare genetic disease. It is usually happens before birth and is mostly inherited, but it can also occur spontaneously. It's a genetic mutation that actually prevents the body from producing dystrophin. And dystrophin is a protein that our muscles need to work properly. And without it, muscles get damaged and weakened. I use the analogy that if you think of a trampoline, dystrophin are the springs that hold the fabric together. And if you didn't have that on a trampoline, you would have repetitive damage. And dystrophin is sort of those shock absorbers that you need. So a mutation can also be referred to as an error or a variant. So sometimes you'll see that nomenclature used. So right now there's currently not a cure for Duchenne, but there are certain standards of care and practices. And I would tell you that there are several treatments, including 3 commercially available now, that have disease modifying qualities to them. And so there are many that are being studied right now that are helping to develop that to eventually have a cure. We always recommend that you discuss treatment and your care options with your child's physician. That's primarily the first place to go to always. So a little bit about genetic testing, and genetic testing is really important in the step of not only potentially confirming the diagnosis of Duchenne, but it also will help determine if your child is eligible for certain care options. So a genetic test is usually a simple blood test. Sometimes it's a buccal swab, but it's very essentially an easy test to do, but it provides a great amount of information. And as we go through with some of the treatments, it may become clearer. But there's also really a lot of opportunity for you and your family to have counseling. So you can learn more about genetic testing at www.duchenne.com. And I'm going to show you a couple tests that are available. And they're no-cost genetic testing programs, and they're really terrific programs. So the first one is Decode Duchenne, and this is done through PPMD, which is Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, and Perkin-Elmer, and they will help confirm diagnosis of Duchenne or even Becker muscular dystrophy. There is also free testing available for females if you have a positive family history. Another program is Detect Muscular Dystrophy. This is also a no-charge genetic testing, and it is done in counseling with a company called Invitae. They will test anyone in the US and Canada, and it also extends outside of the US as well. This one is not intended for carriers, but if a family member tests positive, they will also have a counseling available for family. So 2 really good programs. So we're going to shift a little bit to talk about the pathway to a drug getting developed. And it's a pretty intricate pathway that starts very early on in the lab in doing research, trying to get a proof of concept if a drug actually can work, if its mechanism of action can go forward to study in a preclinical manner. So preclinical manner usually involves animal studies, and they want to test safety and a drug effect. Once it's cleared through there, we go through early stage clinical trials. That's when it goes into human testing. And we call it phase 1. In phase 1, human clinical trials will test preliminary effects of the drug, but mostly it's looking at just the safety of the drug. And it's really small numbers that they're being studied. And in some, such as ours, our preliminary had only 4 patients. So very, very small. When we talk about rare disease, those numbers are in a small subset of patients. As we get further and the trial gives us good information, we move forward into later stage, phase 2, phase 3, where we're going to characterize its effect in a larger population of patients. And you'll see once those phase 2, phase 3, the phase 3 go through regulatory bodies, the FDA will eventually, if approved, will get on the market, and that's when they're commercially available for patients based off of the indications in their package insert. Afterwards, once a drug is commercially approved, there's lots of post-marketing studies that usually continue on, and we have a few of those going on for our trials as well. So just to kind of give you an overview picture of how drugs get developed. So this is a little bit busy slide, but the part about when drugs go into the human study, it's clinical trials. The FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has a very rigorous pathway to prove that a drug not only works, but it is safe to use. And so part of that is the clinical trial research study. A lot of these go on at different institutions around the country. And they start with the clinical trial protocol that is approved by the FDA to go into study. And they'll have lots of tests and procedures. They'll be maybe looking at different dosages of the medication, different lengths of study, and lots of other details on the objectives. If you qualify for a study, then there are study team coordinators at institutions that basically help you navigate through this along with their healthcare provider. So they help coordinate appointments for you, traveling, all the participation that is needed. The first piece of this actually though is you have to consent. So nothing goes forward without patient and family consent to join the clinical trial. And so that is utmost. You should know everything, and all the questions should be answered about what your participation involves, so that you could make a decision that's best for you if this trial is right for you. So again, your study team staff and physician are the best to speak to about consideration of clinical trials. All right, so clinical trials have a big database. It's privately and publicly funded for clinical studies that are conducted around the world. Clinicaltrials.gov is another website that you should make note of, because you could go on this website and you could put in Duchenne muscular dystrophy and into one of these search boxes, and it will pop up the certain trials that are going on within the US and outside the US actually. There's lots of filters on there that you can go on and filter for interventional studies and filter for US studies and all those kinds of details that are there. I'm going to show you later, there's an NCT number that goes along with the trial, so you could also input those numbers that you see for certain studies that may be going on and be able to pull that up on this site. So it's a really good resource. Along with other resources for clinical trials, again, your physician and your care team are really the best. Patient advocacy groups like JET Foundation are wonderful to give you the resources and point you in the right direction. From our company standpoint, along with our recommendations for your care team, is that you can visit Sarepta.com /clinical trials overview, and that will help give you a peek at that. Again, clinicaltrials.gov search, and then you can reach to us directly. We have an 800 number, 690-2003, or you can email us at sareptally@sarepta.com. And again, these numbers and references will be provided to you after this talk. All right, so as we looked at the drug development pathway, let's put it in context of Sarepta's Duchenne pipeline. So you'll see down here the PMO, and we're going to go over what we have. We actually have 3 drugs currently on the market, and they are for certain Duchenne patients that are amenable to treatment, and we can talk about that. But they cover almost about 30% of the Duchenne population at this point. Again, we're working towards 100%. We have a PPMO, and that is still in the clinical trial phase in development. Our gene therapy is in our phase 3, so we're in that last stage of clinical development. And our gene editing is very early on. It's still preclinical in the animal stages. Okay, so let's talk about our RNA-targeted therapies. These involve our PMO and our PPMO. So what is PMO? This is why we would say PMO, because it's a big, big word, phosphorodiamidate morpholino oligomor. So PMO is really what you want to go to. But you can also refer to as exon skip. Exon skip is the mechanism of action, and how the RNA-targeted therapies work are, and I'll show you in this slide progression, is that if we have a normal piece of dystrophin, this is the person without Duchenne, and you have, this is part of the dystrophin gene. These little squares are exons. And so what happens is a ribosome, which is a messenger, it runs across and it reads that dystrophin gene. And when the ribosome reads a normal dystrophin gene, it actually produces a normal dystrophin protein. So this is what we see without Duchenne. So in a patient that has Duchenne, an example of this is where some of these exons are deleted. And when they're deleted, that reading frame is disrupted. So here's an example. This particular disruption is between exon 53 and 55. So you see between there, those are deleted. So those are missing in a Duchenne patient, in a particular Duchenne patient. And then when it's disrupted, you can see that the puzzle pieces don't fit. 52 doesn't fit to 56. And so when the ribosome comes to read this frame, it gets sort of gibberish. So what's produced now is an unstable dystrophin protein. And this is what typically results in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. With exon skipping medications, therapies, we look to restore that reading frame. So in this case where the patient had a disruption between 53 and 55, so their 52 and 56 are stuck together and the puzzle piece doesn't fit. With PMO technology, that particular PMO fits over exon 52 to skip. So now 51 fits onto 56. So what happens now is the ribosome is able to read that And what is produced, it's intended to produce a dystrophin protein, although it might be slightly truncated. But the point is that you're able to restore that reading frame so that you get a truncated version of the dystrophin. So it can be confusing to see not all patients have the same types of deletions or mutations. Deletions are the most common type of mutation that exists. And so there are tools out there to kind of understand amenability to treatment. And Duchenne.com has one of these tools. It's an exon skipping tool. And it's really a great resource. Actually, we see that a lot of providers actually love to have this, and they teach it in their clinics to their patients and families. So it's a terrific resource. I highly recommend to download that. So in terms of Sarepta, our PMO, our RNA-based technologies, we have 3 that are approved to treat Duchenne, and they are mutation specific. So we have ones that are specific to skipping exon 45, 53, and 51. And like I said, that takes about 30%, almost 30% of the Duchenne population that are amenable for those treatments. There are 2 trials going on. One of them is Essence. Unfortunately, it's recruiting only outside of the US at this time. And then we have a mission, and this one is active, not recruiting yet, but as you can see, these are these NCT identifier numbers. If you take a look at here, those are the numbers that you can put into clinicaltrials.gov to get the latest information on if the trial has started to recruit again, or sites where they may be performing these studies. So those are really good resources to keep an eye on. This is a terrific program by Sarepta. It's called Sarepta Assist Support Program. And this is a terrific program that will help you, the families and the patients, navigate when they want to start or are going to start and to stay on therapy. So it can be a rigorous program to kind of navigate it, and these folks make it really easy. I mean, they're terrific. They're very dedicated. They're case managers. They have knowledge not only in the rare disease space, but they have knowledge about the insurance plans and all the healthcare networks. So all those things that are difficult to navigate, they're experts on. They also provide you a case manager, and that's one-on-one personalized support to patients and their caregivers. And they help with a variety of things. Reimbursement support is one of the biggest things that needs to help to be navigated, and they're terrific on that. Financial assistance. They can also connect you logistically with the pharmacies that are delivering medications if you're doing home infusions, educational support managers, and they can also connect you with patient access managers. They're available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 6:30, and you can contact Sarepta Assist. There's a number here, also a website. And if you need language translation available, it's also available in Spanish, but they can also assist with that. All right, PPMO. So this is the same as PMO, except it's got a peptide at the beginning. And this is investigational. It's not approved at this time, but we're excited about this next level of technology. It's sort of the second generation of PMO. So we want to make the PMO even better. So currently the PMO is an infusion that's given weekly. The PPMO is being investigated to give the infusion on a monthly basis, once a month. And it has the same structure as the PMO, with the addition of a cell-penetrating peptide. And what that peptide is designed to do is to have a little more specific target to muscle cell membrane and other tissues that are important to treat in Duchenne. Here is, again, the NCT number for this particular trial. It's not recruiting at this time, but if you are on the NCT identifier. I know that we're looking forward to getting that enrolling as soon as possible. We're going to shift gears a little bit from the RNA treatment platform and talk about our microdystrophin gene therapy program. Again, this is not approved at this time. We are in investigations now currently, and patients are being treated under clinical trials. So what is gene therapy? So gene therapy in particular with Duchenne is actually ideal for gene therapy because it's considered a monogenic disease. And what does that mean? Mono means one. We know that what is deficient with Duchenne is the dystrophin protein, just that one. So we can take that gene of interest, that dystrophin gene, we can make a version of it, put it into a vector, we call that a transgene, and infuse that into the patient, where we hope that it would modify the defect that's going on, where they're not able to produce that functional dystrophin protein. There's a lot of entities about specifically the gene therapy and the gene of interest, the transgene. With Duchenne, that dystrophin gene is one of the largest genes in the body. It's really big, and so it's hard to fit into the vector. So that's what we call it, a microdystrophin gene therapy, because we take a micro version of that transgene so that it can fit into the vector, sort of like the bus that drops off the cargo, and that then it will enter the cells and be expressed. So lots of things to learn about that. And I would tell you that we have tons of resources and videos, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. So along the clinical development path, we call this one, SRP stands for Sarepta, and 9001 is the microdystrophin development. So the 9001 refers to this particular gene therapy. So it started the trial 1, which was the phase 1. I said it was small, 4 patients in that open label trial. And that was the proof of concept in humans. And the goal was primarily safety. That trial completed. We actually have published results in JAMA Neurology. And there are 3 years of safety data and functional data that have been presented this past September on those 4 patients. Because of the great data from those 4 patients, we were able to move into trial 2. And that looked at 41 patients. And this one, the goal was still safety, but we also needed to look at function, and we needed to see that against a placebo-controlled group. They studied it with ages 4 to 7. They completed the enrollment, and we will continue to read out on this study through the end of this year and beginning of next year. There'll be more data evolving. But we presented quite a bit to date. The next trial that started is the Endeavor trial. That started last year at this time. And 38 patients were enrolled in this trial. And this trial is really important because it was the first trial that looked at the commercial representative material for the microdystrophin gene therapy. And why is that important? Important is because this would be the material, the investigative product that would actually go to be commercially approved. So it was really important that this study was conducted. And we looked at patients in this trial 3 years and older that were ambulatory and non-ambulatory cohorts. And we already presented on safety and expression data earlier this year, and we'll continue to be updating the data from this trial. Now, Embark trial 301 is the phase 3 trial that just is getting underway right now. It is going to encompass 120 patients. It's a placebo-controlled trial. I say placebo-controlled, but that everyone in the trial will eventually get drug. So you may get it placebo the first time around, but the second time around, you will get the drug. But it's a blinded study, so patients do not know what they're getting throughout the trial, but everyone will eventually get the drug. It's being studied in ages 4 to 8 years of age. And we're anticipating to enroll in about 10 countries, including the US. And then hopefully in the beginning of next year, we will start ENVISION study. So we don't have an NCT here because we have not begun this study yet. And it's trial 303. And 303 will be another placebo-controlled trial, but it'll be looking at non-ambulatory population. So we'll stay tuned on that one. But the ones that are in purple, those trials will be the ones that will be leveraged to hopefully gain approval of microdystrophin gene therapy 9001. So I mentioned the gene therapy resources. These are terrific. There's a brochure. You can get this one online at Sarepta.com, gene therapy engine. And there's also a gene therapy frequently asked questions about gene therapy video series. This is a YouTube video that can be accessed as well. I would encourage you to look at both of these resources. They give you a lot more information than we have for our time today, but I would strongly recommend them. Sarepta is also involved in community programs, and these I've seen over the years at Sarepta with great success. So one of them is the Duchenne scholarship program. It's called Route 79, and it's a scholarship program that's designed to help students who are diagnosed with DMD pursue their post-high school educational goals. So these are kids that want to go to college and study other interests. And so Sarepta has provided since 2018 over 65 scholarships for Route 79. And really just encouraging, and it's a wonderful program. So you can learn more about that at Sarepta.com/Route 79. And a newer program that was established, it's called Rare Lessons. And this is also led by Sarepta. And it's intended to bring awareness to rare disease in the classroom. So actually 4 educators were awarded the Rare Lessons prizes on rare diseases. And you can access their lesson plans on this website as well. And you can also download their lessons plans. So they're really just a wonderful resource to bring awareness to rare disease and really foster inclusivity in the classroom. Lots of resources coming your way. Here's another one, Duchenne.com. Highly recommended. And if you want to understand more about Duchenne, the role of genetics, clinical trials, support for the family, questions that you may be wondering, what should I ask my doctor when I go see? They'll give you a guide on things that you should ask, things that are important to you that you may not think about or forget when you're in the treatment room with your provider. That will help you to guide those meetings. Anything about conversations about Duchenne, socializing with others, questions that you may be faced with, super resource, Duchenne.com. So we're getting to the end of this presentation. I want to thank you all for logging in today and taking the time to learn more about Sarepta and what we have to offer for the Duchenne community. Again, please contact our patient affairs team at advocacy@sarepta.com. And certainly Jet Foundation is more than willing to provide all the resources that we listed today. So I will open it up if there are any questions that have come in through the chat.
Great, thanks so much, Kimber. We really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Hopefully it answers some of the questions that you guys have as families. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions regarding the presentation or for Kimber, please drop them in the question section. We do have One so far. So it says, would you say Exondys 51 is standard of care now for eligible patients in the US? Why or why not?
Okay. Well, standard of care is a relative term because Exondys 51, you have to be amenable to skipping exon 51. And so the best information is to get from your provider if that therapy is going to be best for your child. Certainly, it is an option that is available.
Thank you. We'll give it a little bit of time. If you do have any questions, we are happy to answer them. If for some reason you don't want to ask them in the question box, please send them to myself. You can find my email if you don't already have it at jetfoundation.org, and I can definitely send them to Kimber later on as well. We do have two more. One asked if they can get the information for, I think, teachers.
Oh, okay. For the rare lessons?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Okay, so we can provide, are you able to provide that?
For sure.
Perfect, yes. There's a great link. I opened it up and there's lots of little blogs that you can hit, click, and download.
Perfect. I will send that to them. And then when is PPMO 45 skip likely to start?
Oh, okay. So we have not announced a PPMO 45. So we're in the process of studying exon 51 for PPMO at this time. So again, our Sarepta.com, we will update when we are beginning any of the other exon clinical programs for PPMO. But at this time, it's just 51.
Perfect. All right. I'm gonna give it one more shot and see what we get. All right. Is any type of genetic testing okay for determining eligibility for PMOs and microdyscs?
Well, so that is a question you should clarify with your healthcare provider, because some testing, so that's direct to consumer, may not be the most reliable. So the two that I gave you today are free programs that offer the counseling. And so any program, I can't speak to those. And so it's best to run them by your provider to make sure that they are valid. Because the biggest part about the genetic testing is really in the genetic counseling that comes with it. And that is super important. And I say that because as it is a X-linked genetic disease, it may be important to test other members of the family that potentially are carriers as well. So having that genetic counseling piece is super important. So Detect Duchenne and Decode Duchenne, the ones that we gave today, we can endorse those, but again, I highly recommend speaking to your healthcare provider.
Perfect. And then we have another one. When is microdystrophin gene therapy going to be available for 9 to 12-year-old age group?
Okay. So, so part of that whole drug development path is where we are still investigating microdystrophin. So once, in the hopes that microdystrophin gene therapy is approved, the FDA will give us a label that will determine what ages and subpopulations we'll be able to treat and to be available for. At this time, we don't know. So part of what we've done with our clinical trial is looking at certain ages and determining that. And that also helps the FDA to determine. So with our RNA therapies right now that are approved, there is no age limit on all three of those therapies or ambulation status. We don't know what will be determined by the FDA for microdystrophin, but our goal is, to be inclusive with as many as possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I think that's all the questions that we have. I think that was a really wonderful presentation and a very in-depth overview of what you have in the pipeline. So it's very exciting to see. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Everybody on the call, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being here with us today. We hope you join us again in the future. Again, if you have any other questions, please reach out to myself or advocacy@sarepta.org, and we will try and get questions answered for you. Also, if you have any suggestions on educational topics for this series, please feel free to reach out to me. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we also hope to see you soon. So thank you all for being here. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and thank you again for being here. And thank you again, Kimber, for the presentation. It's great.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, everybody.